reporting tools to help you there, which do work in the same way. These 3 tools here go way further than your standard reports that you're used to using to get information out of your Sage 100. It allows you to actually create your own custom reports from the ground up, not just customizing the crystal reports that already comes with your Sage 100, and maybe if you're good enough, tweaking the user-defined fields on the worksheet. This presentation is going to focus mainly on the first one, the dashboard, and the second 2 we're just going to gloss over, and I will cover those in a future demonstration. So this is going to mainly talk about the dashboard, but I am going to cover the reporter and the explorer a little bit. So where is Business Insights? If you open up your Sage 100, if you don't look hard enough, or if you don't have that module added on, to add it on, you go to library, and then you go to company maintenance, and you choose the company, and then you click on activate, and you make sure that you activate your Business Insights module. Once you do that, or if you've already done it, then when you open up your Sage, and this happens to be 2017 with the new user interface, not the classic one, you'll see that there's a module there called Business Insights. And in there are 3 sections, Dashboard, Reporter, and Explorer. So we're going to dig in a little bit deeper here and explain kind of what these are. So the first one is the dashboard. And like dashboards in cars, it gives you important information. Now, if you're traveling between your house and the mall, the speed and the oil temperature is not something you're really going to look at all the time, but if it becomes a problem, it's right there and can be presented to you. And in business, the dashboard is kind of used the same way. It keeps certain people updated about certain parts of the business that they are most interested in. And you can show that information in graphs and charts, and usually those graphs and charts have a underlying report that you can also produce. And I will go into much greater detail about the dashboards as we get into this presentation. The next piece here, which is my personal favorite, is the reporter. And this is the piece that actually allows you to create a custom report from the ground up. You decide what data you want to see, how you want it displayed, and somebody who has done it before, and it does take a little bit of learning, which is why it will be its own separate demonstration, is that there's a lot there. There's a lot of data, and there's a lot of choices, and once you understand them, you really have a much better tool at your disposal to pull data out of the system. The last piece here is the Explorer, is actually what I like to call the Explorer Vault. If you go through almost all of the modules in Sage 100, you will find a section called Explorer. And each module has between 2 and 5 different, they're called explorers, they're called views. You might have noticed them and looked at them. You might even use some of them. They're actually very powerful. What you have in the Business Insights Explorer folder is all the ones throughout Sage. So every one that's in this folder is available somewhere else in Sage under the specific module that it's associated with. Again, that is a whole presentation in itself, and I will just show you a sample of what one looks like in a little bit so you can see, but you have to come back for that demonstration at a later time. So I'm going to touch on the reporter piece before we get into the dashboard. So here I show where you click on the business insights, then you click on the reporter and you open up that module and you click on the business insights reporter, which then brings up this other window over here. Whoops. Where you have a list of existing reports that you've done, or you can create a new report. And remember, we're going to go through this module quickly here. So I just want to give you a taste of what it does so you know in the future. The first screen that comes up wants to know the name of the report, and you cannot put any spaces or dashes or underscores in the report name. It wants literally just letters or numbers. In the description, you can put whatever you want the report to be. And one of the nice features of this is you can automatically tell it to put this report into the custom reports folder of any module that you have. So it's available for the people who have the correct roles and user rights can access it. So in this demonstration, I'm doing one for inventory, so I'm going to put it in the inventory management folder. The next screen comes up and it wants to know what area do you want to pull this information from. And there are a lot of choices in this list. When you get there, you can scroll around. I'm a big fan of inventory, so I went to the section called Inventory Current Information, and I chose items. And down here, it gives you an example of what information you're going to get when you choose this. And when you go through here, you see that it covers just about everything that is in your Sage. The next screen comes up, and this gets a little more complicated here. It wants to know what fields you're interested in looking at. And like in many other places in Sage, you would click on a field and you would click the add, and it would move that from one side over to the other. You have choices here of adding additional fields and actually adding additional links. For those of you that know what that means, you can link this table with another table so you can have all of those fields available in your custom report. Another choice that you get is you get to decide what order that report sorts the data out. You can have multi-level sorting. And you also, if you know what page breaking is and headers and footers, you can also adjust that. And I will go into much more detail of this when I do the piece on the reporter. You get to lay out what your report looks like. Again, if you don't understand what page header and detail A, B, and C is, that's all right. I'll go over that in the next one. For those of you who do understand, you see how powerful this is as far as a custom report creator. One of the nice features that I like is you can define the filters. So if we're looking at inventory items, I said here that I want only where quantity on hand is greater than 0. But for the item code, I put the check mark in runtime, which means that when the report runs, it's going to ask the user in the same format that it does for all other types of reports, whether they want all the items or allow them to pick specific items. It will not give them the choice about seeing items that have 0 or less on hand, because I did not check the runtime for that one to run, but I could if I wanted to. This is what a Explorer / View screen looks like. It has a lot going on here and way too much to talk about, even just going over it lightly, but suffice to say that you can configure these so that you come in here and you look at items and you see the corresponding vendors that go along with them, and you can move up and down this list. You can adjust what items you see at the bottom. You can save formats that you like so that only you can look at them. You can export this data to Excel. Again, there's a lot going on here, and I will do a separate presentation just on how to go through the Explorer or views. Now we are going to get to the dashboard. What you're looking at here is a typical Sage 100 screen. When it opens up, you have your modules, you have your different subfolders within the modules, and then you have this area right here that pretty much doesn't do a lot for you. There are some good links in there if you've ever poked around. There are a few pieces that I use all the time, but most of the time, for most of you, you probably don't even see it anymore because it's always there and it doesn't really help you that much. But if you were the accounts payable person in your company and you routinely moved around between accounts payable and maybe purchase order and maybe general ledger, if you always had your current payables aging right next to you, where it constantly updated every hour, new information as people were paying as bills were being paid, or invoices were being added, AP invoices, it would be very, very helpful. As you can see, it goes into detail about the aging, and it shows you the breakdown on the current 30, 60, 90. If you were the HR person, maybe you would be interested in seeing these workforce statistics come up that would update themselves either every hour or every day. If you were the sales manager, maybe you would want to see a graph that comes up that's showing you your total sales by product line. If you were the owner, maybe you would want to see your profitability ratios and your solvency ratios being updated literally every hour. With Sage 100 Business Insights, all of these graphs or dashboard objects are available, including all the ones that you're looking at here. You see that they cover a wide variety of data. Somebody went through and decided these are the ones that we want you to be able to see. If you notice in the size column, it either says full or half. Half means that only takes up half of that area and you could fit 2 of them side by side. Full means that you can only see 1 and you have to scroll down to see other ones. And the few of them that have options, that gives you the ability to see additional number of rows than the normal ones returned. For instance, if you're looking at the very bottom one that says top items, it has options next to it, and you can show the top 10 items, the top 25 items, top 50 items. It's up to you. So let me show you now, if you have Sage 100 with Business Insights, how you would go about setting up the dashboard that already comes with your system and is waiting for you just to go through these few steps I'm about to show you now. So first we would come in and we would choose the dashboard options. And if you notice in the options, there aren't too many of them. There's just 2 tabs, main and additional. You can name your dashboard so that it comes up on top. You can add a logo so it looks fancy. You can choose the number of segments you want to see in your pie chart and in your detail lines. And then in the additional tab, it talks about when the data should be updated on the dashboard, and it gives us some setup options. And typically I set mine up the way you see it here. And when we get into the automatic update feature, we'll talk about this a little bit more. So after we've gone through the options, we now want to go through a typical Sage 100 wizard. Hopefully all of you have gone through one of these wizards before. They all pretty much start out the same way. We get to the very first screen here, and we notice that the dashboards are configured by user. So everybody can have their own, and that way you can only allow certain people to see certain dashboard features if that's how you want to do it at your company. And you can allow the user to modify their dashboard or not be able to. And you can also decide whether they can ever be prompted to update. I'm not sure why they would not want to update, but it does give you that option. Then we get to the screen where we get to choose what we want to see in our dashboard. And the list on the left, it's not all there. I showed it to you on an earlier slide. Those are all the same available dashboards that you would want. So if you want to see payables aging, you would click on it. You would click on the one arrow, and it would move it over and show that that's the one you wanted. Now you could choose multiple ones. You could actually choose all of them. If you hit the double arrow, you choose all the views, and they all get listed there, and you can scroll down and see all of them, and you're more than happy to try it. First time it takes it a couple minutes to update, but after that, you're looking at an awful lot of data. The wizard finishes, gives you a summary of what you're going to see in your dashboard, and then it closes. And the next thing you need to do is tell the system you want to display your dashboard. And when it comes up, it wants to know what date you want to use. If you want to update it, normally you just take the default. If you are testing this out with some of the test companies, then you would want to make sure that you move the date so that it makes sense. If not, you're going to show that everything is either way in the future or it's all way in the past. Once your dashboard is activated, as you see here, the dashboard that you chose, the payables aging, shows up, the logo shows up, and the name that I called it, David's Custom BI Dashboard, shows up. If you would have picked 2 half dashboards, then they would be sitting next door to each other here. And if you picked more, you would have to scroll down and look for those. And now we are not quite done yet, but we're almost there. The next thing we want to do is we want to start the automatic dashboard update. What this does is this goes out at predefined times. Could be once a day, could be every 4 hours, could be all the way down to once an hour. It goes out and pulls fresh data for whatever dashboards you have chose. So in order to do that, We just come here and we click on the start, and it shows us that the automatic update has started and is currently running. And if we want to, we could stop it, or we could just click OK, and the dashboard will run all by itself every hour, every 2 hours, and update the data here for the specific person who is assigned to this dashboard. That is all I have on the business insights. I covered the first of the 3 modules in there. And if anybody has any questions or comments, they can certainly send me an email and I would be happy to answer it. Thank you.